It was supposed to be a fun team-building exercise. A group of us from the marketing department decided to spend the night in the office to work on a big project and bond over pizza and late-night brainstorming. I thought it would be a great way to unwind with my coworkers, but I had no idea how wrong things would turn out. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we settled into our usual spots, surrounded by the familiar glow of computer screens and the smell of greasy pizza. Laughter echoed through the halls, and for a while, everything felt normal. We shared stories, played games, and even shared a few ghost stories for good measure. It was all in good fun until the clock struck midnight. That's when the atmosphere shifted, the laughter faded, and an uneasy silence settled over us. We were all aware of the creaks and groans of the old building, but tonight, they felt different. It was as if the office had come alive, whispering secrets in the dark. I shrugged it off, convincing myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I glanced around the room, and my coworkers exchanged nervous glances. "It's just the old wiring," one of them said, trying to lighten the mood. But deep down, I could sense a growing tension. We decided to take a break and head to the break room for some snacks. As we walked down the dimly lit hallway, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, a shadow darting past the glass conference room. I stopped in my tracks, my heart racing. "Did you guys see that?" I asked, but they brushed it off as a trick of the light. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. After grabbing some snacks, we returned to our desks, but the unease lingered. I tried to focus on my work, but I kept hearing faint whispers echoing through the halls. I glanced at my coworkers, who were also starting to look uneasy. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. They nodded, their eyes wide with fear. Just then, one of our team members, Sarah, stood up abruptly. "I'm going to check the supply room," she said, her voice shaky. We all exchanged worried looks, but she insisted. "I'll be right back." I watched as she walked down the hallway, her figure disappearing into the shadows. Moments later, we heard a loud crash from the supply room, followed by a scream. Panic surged through us as we rushed toward the noise. When we reached the supply room, the door was ajar, and Sarah was nowhere to be found. The room was in disarray. Boxes were toppled over, and the lights flickered ominously. "Sarah," I called out, my voice trembling. There was no response, only an eerie silence. We searched the room frantically, but found nothing. Just as we were about to give up, I noticed a small door at the back of the supply room, one I had never seen before. It was slightly open, revealing darkness beyond. Against my better judgment, I pushed the door open wider. "Sarah," I called again, but only silence greeted me. Without thinking, I stepped inside. The air was cold, and I could feel a strange presence surrounding me. I turned back to my coworkers, who hesitated at the threshold. "Come on, we have to find her," I urged. Reluctantly, they followed me into the darkness. As we ventured deeper, the whispers grew louder, swirling around us like a sinister wind. My heart pounded in my chest as I felt an icy breath against my neck. I turned, but there was nothing there. The walls seemed to close in on us, and I could feel the panic rising. Suddenly, we heard a faint cry coming from deeper, within the darkness. It was Sarah. "Help, I'm in here," she shouted. We rushed toward her voice, our hearts racing. As we rounded a corner, we found her huddled in a small room, trembling with fear. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Before we could reach her, the door behind us slammed shut, plunging us into darkness. We were trapped. The whispers turned into anguished wails, echoing in our ears. I felt a cold hand grasp my shoulder, and I spun around to find myself face to face with a shadowy figure. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and I could feel its malevolence. "Get away from her!" I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the darkness. My coworkers were frozen in fear, and I could see the terror in their eyes. The figure advanced, and I knew we had to escape. I grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. With a surge of adrenaline, I slammed into the door, praying it would give way. The wails grew deafening, and the presence of the shadowy figure loomed closer. My coworkers snapped out of their terrified stupor and joined me, pounding against the door with all their strength. Just when it felt hopeless, the door burst open with an ear-splitting crack, sending us stumbling into the supply room. The oppressive whispers stopped instantly, replaced by an eerie silence. The flickering light stabilized, and for a moment, everything seemed normal, except for the lingering coldness in the air and the lingering sense of being watched. We didn't waste another second. Grabbing Sarah, we bolted out of the supply room, slamming the door shut behind us. The hallway felt impossibly long as we sprinted back to our desks, our breaths ragged with fear. "What the hell was that?" Kevin gasped, hands on his knees as he tried to steady himself. "I don't know, but we're not staying to find out," I said firmly, grabbing my bag. My fingers trembled as I packed up my things, my mind racing with questions I wasn't sure I wanted answers to. As we hurried toward the exit, I glanced back at the darkened hallway. The office looked the same as it had hours ago, but now it felt foreign, wrong. Just as I turned away, I saw it, a single, dark figure standing at the entrance to the supply room, watching us. Its eyes gleamed in the dim light, and as I blinked, it vanished. I didn't say a word. I simply pushed open the doors, letting the cool night air wash over me. My coworkers followed suit, none of us daring to speak as we stepped into the safety of the parking lot. We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of what had happened pressing down on us. "Let's never do this again," Sarah muttered finally, her voice barely above a whisper. There was no argument. One by one, we got into our cars and drove away, leaving the office, and whatever was inside it, behind. As I pulled onto the road, I glanced in my rearview mirror. For a split second, I swore I saw the shadow standing by the office doors, watching us leave. I pressed down on the gas and didn't look back.